Welcome back to the R2S Sports Channel. We finally had the Premier League back after a week-long international break. We had some pretty good international games, but I'm looking forward to the Premier League. We got Game Week 8 coming up, so let's get right into the picks. For our first game this game week, we have Watford versus Liverpool. This game should be fairly interesting. You have Claudio Ranieri returning as manager to the Premier League. He last managed Leicester City when they went on that championship run to secure the Premier League title. So it should be interesting what he can do with this Watford team. This Watford team isn't too bad, but I don't think he's had enough of his tactics put into their system where it's going to just gel immediately. So I think Liverpool is going to come into this game pretty confident. They just came off one of the best games of the season against Man City 2 weeks ago. So I think that form will continue into this game. I think they're going to absolutely thrash Watford. Most people are going to captain Salah for this game. I don't blame you. I'm probably going to captain him myself as what he did last week. So Liverpool probably going to thrash Watford. I have them winning this game 4-0. Speaking of Claudio Ranieri, our next game we have is Leicester City versus Manchester United. This game is probably the best game of the week overall in terms of matchup, uh, in terms of how teams finished last year. Manchester United obviously struggling their last two games, getting a loss and a draw. So I think they should bounce back pretty well this game. Leicester last game against Palace, that second half was pretty bad. Then again, I think Palace, as I am a fan, uh, are bouncing back on the rise of teams. So I think that was just a great performance from them. Leicester, on the other hand, winless in the last four games. So I think that's definitely something to look at coming into this game. Not too sure if Vardy's going to do much this game just because Man U, pretty good team overall. I think for whatever reason, it seems like Man U is trying to get their coach fired just with how they've been playing over the last few games. And so even in the Champions League as well, just honing out last second victories. Um, Overall, though, this game should be pretty good. I got Ronaldo scoring, obviously. That's if he starts because he didn't start last week. Screwed me out of a couple of points for fantasy. Man U failing to keep a clean sheet most of the season. I believe they only have won this whole year. That came very early in the year as well. So I think Leicester will score this game. Obviously, Man U will score. I have Man U taking this home 3-1. Our next game, we have Aston Villa versus Wolves. This is quite an interesting game in terms of their head-to-head record. Aston Villa has 7 wins. Wolves have 5 wins, and there's been 6 draws between the two teams. So it's quite an even matchup overall. So far this season, both teams are looking pretty good. Aston Villa in 10th, Wolves in 12th. So I feel like this game is going to be pretty even overall. I'm expecting Raul Jimenez to have a big game. Obviously, Hwang Hee-chan has looked fantastic for Wolves recently as they've gotten 3 wins in the last 4 games. So that form should definitely continue going into this game. They've looked fantastic, but I think Villa will definitely slow them down a bit. Villa's got a very strong defense, kind of a sneaky team this year after their bad start to the season, but I think they will finish in that top 10 position that they've been looking for, especially after spending what seems to be 120 million this transfer window. But I think this is going to be a close game. I have it going down as a 1-1 draw. Coming up next, we have Manchester City versus Burnley. This, to put it straight, it's just going to be an absolute whitewash of a game. Man City probably should absolutely crush Burnley. I believe Burnley has never beaten Manchester City. Yeah, so Sean Dyche has 0 wins against Manchester City. Pep Guardiola has 12 wins, 1 draw against Sean Dyche as a manager. So I feel like this is just going to be an absolute blowout. Sorry, Burnley, but it's Manchester City. Just came off of a draw. So I think this is going to be their game. Obviously, Burnley has 3 draws so far this season, all coming against lower half table teams. So I think City will just absolutely dominate this game. I had them win this game 5-0 with goals coming from everyone. For our next game this week, we got Norwich City versus Brighton. Immediately looking at this game, you look 6th place versus 20th place, 1 point versus 14. You're going Brighton's obviously going to win this game, but I think Norwich has got something coming for them. Norwich just got a draw in their last result. They finally got a point this season. I think this is the worst start in Premier League history. Brighton has looked pretty good so far, but have dropped points in the last 2 games. So I think this game should be a little different than what people think it's going to be. Obviously, Norwich concedes a lot of shots. Todd Cantwell, I don't think he's played in a while, so their midfield is like very weak. Forward play, obviously, also very weak because they haven't been able to score too much either. So I think Brighton will go ahead early in this game, keep a 1-0 lead for maybe 40, 50 minutes. Then I think Norwich is going to score a little bit later or so, tie the game 1-1. And I think the game's just going to end as a 1-1 draw. It should be fairly one-sided towards Brighton, but I think Norwich is able to sneak another point and maybe get a little further up on the table. Next game that we have Southampton versus Leeds. This game should be pretty good. Leeds are just came off a win, first win the season. They're on 6 points now. Southampton have failed to get a win yet this season. So far, they have 4 draws and I believe 2 losses or 3 losses. So definitely an interesting game in terms of both teams' results so far. Leeds have conceded a lot of goals so far this season, but last game they conceded no goals. So that's definitely something interesting to look at. I believe Rafinha should be playing this game, so I think he will definitely score for Leeds. Southampton are a pretty good defensive team, so I think they will keep a shutout for a majority of the game. But Leeds with Bamford and Rafinha, I think they're definitely going to put some up on the table. Southampton forward play hasn't looked too good this year. Maybe Adam Armstrong might put a goal away or Che Adams, but I think Leeds are going to win this game 2-0. For our final game of Saturday, we have Brentford versus Chelsea. This should be a pretty good game too. Brentford's looked pretty good this season. They're on 12 points. Chelsea so far in first place on 16 points. So Chelsea have looked dominant in most games this season, besides the one game against Manchester City, which they lost, as well as the game against Liverpool, which they drew. But I think they love playing against lower half teams, which I think Brentford will definitely finish in the lower half. I think they're going to start slowing down this season. Obviously, they did just come off a win against West Ham, which was a last second goal, which was just absolutely crazy how that happened. Poor West Ham, but it is what it is. It happens to teams, as I know. Yeah, I think Brentford's going to struggle this game. Chelsea's got one of those defenses that's really hard to break down, especially with Tuchel in charge of their team. So I think they're going to be pretty dominant the whole time. Lukaku, I think this is their stretch of games where he's just going to start going off. So I definitely bring him in over Ronaldo into your team if you're looking for a forward. Him and Jimenez, I think those are the top 2 options right now. Obviously, Antonio's there, but I think those 2 are the best options for your buck right now. Lukaku, I think, is definitely going to score in this game. I have Chelsea win this game 3-0. For our first game of Saturday, we have Everton versus West Ham. This game is being played at Everton Stadium in Liverpool. So I think this definitely should be more favored towards Everton, but I feel like this game is going to be relatively high scoring. Both teams tend to score a lot and let up a decent amount of goals. So it should be a pretty interesting result. Both teams only have 1 win in the last 3 results. So that's another interesting to look at. West Ham kind of falling off from the beginning of the form season. Everton just slowly keep creeping up the table. They're currently in 5th place. So I think Everton is definitely going to be a very threatening team this year. I originally had them finishing lower in the table just because I didn't know what to expect with Benitez at the helm of their team. I think this game is going to be high scoring. Townsend's looked fantastic. If Everton can get one of their forwards back, like Calvert-Lewin or Richarlison, I think they're definitely going to finish, maybe could possibly top 4, kick Man U out, who've looked pretty poor so far this season. So Everton definitely looking good. I think West Ham's going to sneak a couple goals away, especially after that terrible loss 2 weeks ago. This game, I think, is going to finish 2-2. For a penultimate game of the week, we have Newcastle United versus Tottenham Hotspurs. This kind of a strange game. Newcastle's first game since being bought by the absolute billionaire money crazy people in Saudi Arabia. So obviously they don't have any players that they want to buy yet, which they've been linked with over 50 so far. So I think even with Steve Bruce still in charge, which I don't think he's going to be in charge next year, just based on how much money they have with the type of players they're wanting to bring in. They still have to maintain their place in the Premier League, though, which I think is still going to be a big question mark whether their status will remain, despite having such big potential investments in the next season. Obviously, this came at a very good time for Newcastle. That's just another thing to talk about later, though. Spurs, on the other hand, finally get a win after 3 terrible games. I think they're finally on that form that they should be, on 12 points. So I think, though, in this game, looking pretty good. Newcastle kind of struggling so far this season, 3 draws, 0 wins, 4 losses. So I think they will struggle pretty much in this game. Maybe get 1 goal back from St. Maximin or Wilson. Just one of those 2 have looked pretty good for them so far this season. St. Maximin's finishing's been really good so far, putting away a lot of chances that he's gotten. So I think Spurs will come away with this one. Son's, I think, been involved in 83% of goals for Spurs so far this year. So I think he will continue to have master classes coming into this game. Spurs, I have winning this game 2-1. For last game of the week, we got my team playing. We've got Crystal Palace playing against Arsenal. Games at the Emirates Stadium, so that's definitely something to look at. Even though Arsenal has honestly one of the poorest atmospheres of all the Premier League teams. With that being said, though, I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. Crystal Palace defense has been very prone to just random blips that occur. Last second goal against Brighton, the two goals which were just mistakes by Anderson that led to goals against Leicester City. So they're definitely prone to mistakes in the back that just seem to happen every single game, which are very unlucky for them. Crystal Palace, I think Elise needs to start this game. As soon as he came on last game, he looked absolutely electric, opened up the field for them. So, because every single time they'd attack down Zaha's side, which just became very predictable for defenders. So, I think Palace are going to be very attacking this game. Arsenal defense has been kind of an iffy thing for them. Last game, Tomiyasu looked terrible, but the 3 and 4 that he looked great. They've been pretty good recently, 1 draw and 3 wins in the last 4 games after their miserable start to the season with 3 straight losses. So they're definitely a decent side, currently in 11th, Palace in 14th. I'm going to say Zaha is going to have an absolute masterclass, though, just looking into this game, because every time he plays against Arsenal, he seems to cause some sort of issues for them. So with Patrick Vieira's return to the Emirates, I think he's going to come out with a victory in this game. I have Palace win this game 3-2. With that being said, though, those are the 10 Premier League games this week, all 10 of them predicted. Definitely some very good games that I'm looking forward to watching this week. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like the video. Comment down below your thoughts, anything that I said that might have offended you with some of my picks, or just any player I've shouted out, or if a player you have that's a sleeper right now in Fantasy Premier League. That being said, though, yeah, see you guys next time.